It's always somebody else's child that gets the diagnosis. But when it's your child, your life is changed forever.
Paisley was born and never had any complications. We had noticed a couple little things throughout the first 4 months of her life. Going into our 4-month checkup appointment, we kind of brought up those things again. They did chest x-rays, lab work, and the doctor took a look at the chest x-ray and told us that Paisley had an enlarged heart, and just there was a lot of shock value with that, because the next thing we knew, we're following an ambulance.
My son Matthew was 7 months old when he was diagnosed with a hepatoblastoma type of cancer. He then received surgery to remove the tumor, followed by chemotherapy. He then relapsed when he was 2 years old with the tumor in his left lung. Followed by chemotherapy, he went ahead and relapsed 2 years after when he was 4 years old with a tumor on his brain.
She was born with, she has a diagnosis of Down syndrome, and she was born with some holes in her heart. So when she was 4 or 5 months old, she needed open heart surgery, which was a success.
It was a good journey. Actually, this is actually was the best pregnancy out of the 4 pregnancies that we have children from that Stephanie had. So there wasn't a lot of concerns, and until he was born, we had no idea that he had the congenital heart disease that he was born with.
I had a great first pregnancy. I had a beautiful birth and delivery. There were pretty much no challenges throughout, which I was so thankful for. And then the moment that he presented, when we saw him, right after the last push, we entered another world.
We were there. I still remember the shock when we found out about Stephen's fatal heart defect. I just couldn't believe this was my life and my child's diagnosis. So after Stephen's death, we wanted to start an organization that would provide support to families so they could focus on their child's treatment and recovery. And so Stephen's Hope for Children began.
I was one of about 8 people who sat in a room and said, we have to start somewhere, and we all wrote a check. Those were the first donations to Stephen's Hope, and I feel so privileged to have been in that group. For the last 11 years, I have watched the impact that Stephen's Hope and the Cappellis have had in serving families and changing lives. This is so personal. They stand next to these families, and they bring resources and reassurance, and they bring hope.
If you ask any of the social workers, if you ask the nurses who have been there for some time, they know the kind of gap that Stephen's Hope fills and how important they are in terms of the big picture, in terms of helping these children who would not have any other way to stay with their family, to be with their family during the most trying of times.
The first time we walked into the apartment, we had traveled all the way from Minnesota. It was late at night. Thankfully, Stephen's Hope was willing to meet us there. They went out of their way to be there at an unusual time of the day and on the weekend. And we walked in, and it was like exhaling. It was just like...
Stephen's Hope was different. It offered a place where we could be together as a family, where we could have our own space, where we could cook and do our own cleaning, and if we needed to leave a mess, then we could feel free to leave a mess, and have space to kind of process as a family and be there for our children, but also very close to where we could rotate, which is what we ended up doing most of the time, was rotating to be there for just to sit with Caleb, but at the same time take care of our kids appropriately too.
The stress level that people have before they're aware of the fact that there is such a thing as Stephen's Hope and what we see afterwards, it's remarkable, the transformation. I mean,
it makes such a meaningful difference to me knowing that there is help for getting Isabella the things that she needs to thrive, and things that Gregory and I, at this moment in time, cannot provide for her on our own.
It's overwhelming when you're not in a place that you can be there in those moments. And I don't think we even realized how much we needed it until we were there.
A lot of people say, well, how can it be that just having an apartment close by can save a life? It would surprise a lot of people to know that patients can be rejected because they don't have a plan to relocate. Having a place that's close by, I think, has saved innumerable lives.
And if the door had not opened to have housing with Stevens Hope, we'd still be in Minnesota. And Levi would not have been able to get this therapy, and we would not have seen the changes we've seen in him already. There would not be the hope and the promise of the changes yet to come.
We look at each child and each family's needs to get them through the crises and even help them with their new normal. For some, it may be housing, food, or clothing. For others, it may be emotional support, whether a day at Disneyland to help them forget their troubles, gifts at Christmas, or just someone to talk to who understands what they're going through. Someone who can listen and weep with them during the bad times and rejoice with them in the good times. Regardless of where they're at in their journey, we want them to know that there are people who care and want to help them.
I know that being a sponsor of Stevens Hope has changed my life. It has changed my perspective on the things that are important. I wrote that first check not knowing how it could help, but all these years later, I feel that I'm the one who has been blessed by it. When you give to these children, you will feel the reward of it in your own life.
By supporting Stevens Hope for Children, you're giving families like mine the opportunity to watch our children succeed and overcome obstacles. You're part of a winning team.
Stevens Hope provides these families the whole package. It's not just the fact that they have a place to stay. It's not just the financial resources that they supply. It's not just the fact that there are gifts around the holidays. It's the fact that there's caring. And there's really a sense of belonging. And Stevens Hope comes in with that whole package. So it's about being there for the whole person, for the whole family.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, short of having gone through the experience yourself, if you ever will really know how you are touching people's lives. But I'd like to tell you from my own personal experience that you are extending so much grace. So everything that you do goes to support people's lives and growing and thriving, and I hope that in some way that enriches your life.